All right. It's been about a year and a half since I've done one of these, but we are back for Generation 9 Player of the Week interviews. First one of the generation. I think this is number 6 overall, I think. Something like that. And today we have a pretty interesting guest, I'll say, as the adjective, Mr. Kid KIYO.
Oh, what an introduction! I just want to say before we get started that I think this is actually my third time being Week One Player of the Week interview, which is wild to me. But whatever.
The third
Here we are.
time. Does someone else get you for Player of the Week back when I wasn't the host?
Absolutely, yeah. Once in like 2016 and once in 2018, and I don't
Awesome.
think 2018's was deserved at all.
All right, so
There were all people like doing the huh who
the Snoop Dogg Who reaction gif.
yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to give a little intro to yourself, other than the one that I just gave you, but
Oh, dude, I think if people really want an intro, they can read the little bit of one in the thread. But the gist is, I've been playing since like 2014 competitively. Or as NU is like my first main tier. Well, actually, I started when it was XY, but I've been playing NU pretty much on and off since then. Played a lot during ORAS and SM. I was TL for a while there. I had a little bit of tournament success back in the day. Played a little bit in SBL, but generally I've stuck to just NU team tours and a few team tours around Smogon. That's where I've kind of enjoyed my stay on the site the most.
hell yeah. I think I might have actually joined Sun Moon around your time of being TL, I think.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Because I didn't post much. I was just kind of like a shit poster that was friends with Yoshi. Shout out to Yoshi. But I just kind of lurked a little bit. And I think you might have been RO during that time, I think. But
Yeah, I think we got like automatic RO back in the day,
oh,
which is
yeah,
a
that's
weird
right. I
policy.
forgot they got rid of that.
It's kind of honestly, it's kind of silly. Like, I get that you want the people who are holding the keys to the tier to have the keys to the room, but like, I don't know, they're different disciplines.
Yeah,
I don't think these same people should necessarily be in charge.
right.
Sometimes it works out that they're the most qualified, but
Not
not
to,
always.
yeah, not to throw shade, but we had a couple recently that I would not give the keys to the room to. Not gonna go into detail on that. However, I'm letting it be known.
You mean the recent NU tier leader Shiloh, who was convicted of some sort of tour scandal way back? It's been so long, I forgot what it was, dude.
It was ghosting, I think.
Oh, okay, that's who you're talking about, right?
Yeah, sure. We'll roll with
Of
that.
course, of course, naturally.
So, first things first, before we get started, we're going to start with a little bit of a sad note. Rest in peace to the NU GOAT, Mr. Bossaru. An absolute legend
Yeah, very sad news today.
in the community and, all across Smogon. So, prayers up for the family and everything like that. So, getting started here with our first question coming from NU Council member and community contributor PokeSlice. He's asking, was there ever a Pokemon broken enough for you to vote ban on?
I mean, I want to answer his question with a question. How do you have CC as your only badge?
That is
How
a
does that not come
great
with CC away, dude?
that's a great question. I can't answer that for you because I now have 2 badges on Smogon. So, right.
No, but to be honest, to answer his question genuinely, yeah, for sure, I definitely vote ban all the time. But I think as the tier shifts have gotten more rapid, like I've generally been more on the side of like I just kind of want to wait and see because I come from a time when tier shifts were like 3 months apart. So
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
that's understandable. You want to see how shit like actually, settles into a tier. Like I don't know, what's one that we had like in early this gen that we banned like immediately and it wasn't broken? Like Snorlax, I guess. That's first time
I think
around.
there's a lot of them that we've been too quick on. Uh, but I can't speak specifically to this gen. I'll be honest, I didn't pay much attention at the beginning of the generation.
Yeah,
Kind of came in the middle.
yeah. I think Slice is also poking fun at the fact that you are very well known to vote do not ban.
Oh, I think it's like you can almost expect to see all green on my name as soon as you see the Excel sheet for council votes. Like the most recent vote was wild because I had more ban votes than some people.
Whoa, hold on. I think I remember back in like SM. I think there was There's a vote on Decidui, and I think you might have been the sole.
Oh no, you're mistaking me with Sir
Oh, that
K9,
is
dude.
K. Damn it. Someone with a K name. I knew that. Someone voted ban on
Oh no, we
Decidui.
still give him shit for that to this day, dude. So we'll
Um,
never let him live that
yeah, I mean, it's understandable. All right, let me scroll down. We're gonna get a fun question in here. So, first question from also community contributor and NU rotating council Phantomistics. First question is favorite genre of music and favorite artist.
See, this is a tough one for me because I don't like I bounce around quite a bit. I don't tend to stay in like one lane or go back and re-listen to one album.
Yeah,
If I had to say there is like one like artist or genre I go back to over and over and over, it's got to be classic rock.
hell yeah.
And specifically Led Zeppelin. I mean, I grew up on that of like concert tapes of Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Stevie Ray Vaughan, like all that kind of stuff in my dad's truck on the cassette player. So
Hell yeah.
that's got some powerful memories for me behind it too. Plus, it just fucking rocks.
Dude, for real. Like, classic. I always, because I do the same shit where I bounce around from music to music. Like, I'm mostly rap now, but I listen to, like, other shit. And I bounced around to, like, the, like, 90s rock type of stuff and, like, classic. I'm like, dude, this is banging. Like,
Definitely, dude.
there's some classic bangers in there, and Led Zeppelin
I mean,
falls into
people
that
give grunge
category.
music like shit. Like I come from Seattle, and I hear nothing about shit for grunge music. But
Yeah.
say what you will, Nirvana's got some great drum tracks. The early Dave Grohl stuff was really kind of funky to it, but also just like fucking loud when it needed to be, and it was
Yeah.
great.
And even, like, Soundgarden's also, like, grunge as well, right? I think,
Definitely, yeah,
I
I
think so,
consider
yeah.
Soundgarden grunge. I'd
Yeah.
even say like Cornell's next band, like Audio Slave, is definitely a little grungy too.
Yeah, I just know because my parents are big Chris Cornell fans, so
Yeah, definitely, man. I love the guy.
that shit goes hard. So, second question here from Phantom Mystics. You have any hobbies outside of Mons?
Hobbies outside of Mons. I mean, I play golf. I mean, I teach high school math, so I would say my hobbies outside of Mons are actually like doing mathematics, which seems kind of lame, but in a way, it's sort of like therapeutic. I don't know. It's a great way to pass time.
Yeah,
Feels good.
I mean, I can't blame you there, cause like I'm a fucking nerd, right? So I have all my hobbies and shit, and one of them is just like you throw some math in front of me. I don't know. It's just kind of like a not like a brain teaser, but it like racks your brain a little bit. It actually gets you
It's fun to problem solve, dude.
exactly, yeah. And it like gets
Yeah,
your
like
brain going.
even like crossword puzzles, Sudoku. I love little toy games like that. It's great.
In my YouTube shorts, I've been getting it's kind of like Wordle, but it's like word association, and there's 16
The
words. Yeah,
Contextual, the New York Times one. Yeah,
yeah. So there's
yeah. I saw Lud
16
and
words there, and then
playing that.
you gotta connect four of them with a category, and there's like a bunch of words with double meanings and shit, and it's just shit like that is just so much fun.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, kind of similar to that, favorite game other than mine. I'm assuming he's talking video game, but
Well, if he's talking like games in general, like definitely the board game Settlers of Catan. If we're talking video games, tough call, man. What would I have to say? My favorite game of all time is I don't know, but I like recently picked up Super Mario RPG on the Switch. That game has been fun. I played the crap out of Tears of the Kingdom recently.
hell yeah.
Again, favorites are really tough for me to pick because it's just a lot of recency bias for me, and you'd have to give me really good time to give you a detailed answer about my favorites.
Yeah.
Like I can tell you right now, going back to like PlayStation 2, Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, NFL Street 3, those are solid games.
I can't disagree. See, that was a little bit before my time, I think. Because I think when.
Yeah, I'm definitely showing my age right now. I'm feeling crusted already.
Yeah, I think that was slightly before my time. Because I think when I was born, it was like the PS2 was still popping, and the PS3
Mm-hmm.
was just around the corner, I think. Somewhere around
You
there.
know what? I'm going to change my answer.
Uh,
I think it's got to be Super Nintendo. Like I still think SMRPG, but it's got to be Super Mario World. Like
bro,
that's the game I've gone back to more than any other.
I
I've probably
wholeheartedly
done
agree.
5 or 6 playthroughs of that throughout my lifetime.
Bro, the whole Mario series kind of goes crazy. Like, I don't think there's really a bad game in that franchise. And even the
Yeah,
bad
that's
ones
fair.
that are like, because I know people shit on like Paper Mario Super or Sticker Star or whatever it is, and like That game's still not even that bad. That's like a solid 7 out of 10.
Yeah, even a bad Mario game is not a bad experience.
I remember when I was younger, I'd played the shit out of Super Mario Galaxy 2 on the Wii. I was going crazy. I still got my
Yeah,
Wii hooked up.
I never got into Galaxy or Galaxy 2 when it was like the current generation of console,
Yeah.
but I went back and revisited it a couple of years ago, and I definitely get the appeal, but I think I missed it because I don't know. It's sort of like Odyssey. Like I've never played through Odyssey.
Yeah.
Like despite having the game since day one, I've never like actually completed the game. And there's probably some people that are angry for me for saying this, but it's just like I don't know. It's one of those I'd have to force myself to get through. I think.
Yeah. And that's how like Super Mario Galaxy 1 was because it's such a big fucking story that I just never got myself through. All right, now this is
I
a.
also have this
Oh,
habit
never
of
mind.
spoiling myself with speed runs, so I'm like, oh, I know the story. I don't need to play the game now.
Yeah, that's also fair. I did that with a couple games recently. I can't remember which ones. I did it with some shit on my PlayStation 4
Hmm.
that I had, and I spoiled the story for me, and I was like pissed. But his Phantom's fourth question here is a triple parter, so three piece here. Who's winning the NBA, NFL, and Stanley Cup? And he says in parentheses, choose wisely. Money may be on the line.
Don't know. Ravens don't care.
So strictly the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, dude.
Which, to be fair, I don't blame you.
I mean, right now, I think that's where the smart money is.
Yeah.
They've been pretty dominant in a lot of games this season. It was tough to stop.
They kicked the shit out of our Detroit Lions and Seattle Seahawks. So
Yeah, they embarrassed the shit out of the Hawks.
also embarrassed the shit out of the Dolphins, who are 11-6. Like,
Yeah, there's been some like teams exposed by the Ravens for sure.
I don't like
Not
think.
that the Seahawks are a fundamentally sound football team. Like the fact that they even have a chance to make it into the playoffs is beyond me. It's like that year we made it in at 7-9.
I remember that. That was like 20.
2011, I think that was the Beastquake year.
Yeah, that was 2011. Because I remember the Lions made playoffs and we got fucking owned by the Saints in round one. Absolutely
It
just
do be like
clobbered.
that sometimes.
I think we were the what were they, like the 5 seed I think that year, something like that. Because I don't think we won the
Is that like
division.
one of the last Megatron years or something?
Nah, 2011 was right in the middle of the Megatron years.
Oh, okay.
It was Stafford's third year. Because
Oh, okay. So you guys still had a good team then.
yeah,
Okay.
we had rookie year Stafford, and then Matt Stafford gets injured in 2010, and then Matt Stafford threw 5,000 yards in 2011. We lost in the first round of playoffs. So hopefully that doesn't happen this year, but knock on wood, it might.
No, I think you guys are going to do well.
I mean, ideally, but
I mean, as long as you don't get boned by the refs on a 2-point conversion again,
dude, don't even bring that up. That still makes me mad. Like when
that's almost as bad as that game they stole from Indianapolis,
yeah,
where they came back and like called a penalty they're not even allowed to call.
yep, refs are crazy.
Yeah, it's been wild, dude. Like the conspiracy theorist in me wants to be like, okay, all these ads for DraftKings, all this money going into sports betting, there's gotta be some sort of fixes getting called in here, dude.
Yeah, and then they banned players for the year, or like they changed the policy recently, but they banned players for a fucking year for gambling. When the whole league is sponsored by DraftKings, like
Right. Like if they're talking about conflicts of interest, like I think that's one of the least likely to actually have an effect.
yeah, like
Like well, as long as they're not betting on their own games, I don't know.
yeah,
To a certain extent, I
I
feel
wouldn't
like players
care
should be
if
able to bet on other teams.
I
Like, oh,
wouldn't
that's my
care
bro.
if
He's gonna go in tonight. You
yeah,
know.
exactly. Like if Trayvon Diggs from the Cowboys bet on a Stephon Diggs game, I wouldn't bat an eye. That's just people should be allowed to do that, but that's just me. This is also
I also think like
me
there's
talking
something
about
too like
JMO.
them they used to about it. Like if you're betting on yourself, is it really gambling type deal? You know.
Yeah. That's just
Like it
being very
absolutely is.
confident.
But like, I like that sort of philosophy about it. Like, you know, it's like no, I got confidence in myself.
Yeah,
It's not a
exactly.
bet.
All right. So, do you want to do the Eternally one or the Rabio one?
No, whichever, man.
I'll do an eeny meeny. Okay, we're doing Eternally, so this is a big one. First part of 6 from Eternally. How do you feel about the ORAS NU meta in 2024, and what are some of your favorite recent innovations in it that you've seen either from yourself or others?
All right, I want to preface this opinion by saying, like the last ORAS NU like tournament that took place was ORAS Premier League.
Yeah.
I played in it, but I was also dog shit in it, and I was checked out as all heck for that tour. So I'll be honest, even though Eternally went like 7-0 in that tournament, I didn't watch any of his games except the one he played versus our team. And I didn't watch a lot of replays for it overall. So if there are some recent innovations I'm unaware of, that's probably why. But generally speaking, I feel like ORAS has kind of been explored to like the ends of the earth, man. We're touching the ice wall type shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just been I mean, it's been ORAS came out in what, 2014? So 10 years ago now?
It's been like a dead meta since 2016. So like the tier fundamentally has not changed in 7 years.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just kind of solved. Is I
I
mean,
mean, you
to
say
put it
that, but like
lightly, it's solved.
the thing is, we're still sort of optimizing teams. I will say, like as far as recent innovations go, that's where I think we're really starting to realize what optimal ORAS NU is. Like
Yeah.
we recently sort of have kind of all come to the consensus that the best way to use um, this Archeops core is with Gastrodon, Wheezing, and Rotom because they all just sort of synergize really well together. And you'll start to see that sort of core pop up on a lot of these like fatter offenses, but also just like offenses that have bulk because you can kind of do that in ORAS. The power level's a little lower.
Yeah.
And then just like weird things as far as innovations go, I'd say I don't know if it was Coots or Eternally, but somebody was bringing back Mega Audino, and Surf has been really good on that to just sort of chip Steelix for a lot of things that need Steelix chipped.
Also, like,
So I think innovations, that's the one big one I've been happy to see.
also nukes the fuck out of Rhydon too, which is
Oh yeah, if you're lucky enough to catch a ride on, which to be fair you might, I'd EQ in that situation quite a bit.
yeah,
Yeah, like Audino in general's kind of seen a renaissance, and then just like other things being standardized. Like I think for a long time when it was current gen, we didn't know what the best mag mortar set was. We kind of went back and forth between like Life Orb and AV, and we've kind of experimented with like Citrus Berry and Flame Body Rest and stuff ever since the tiers sort of stopped being current gen. And then we've kind of arrived at like Life Orb Will-O-Wisp with 3 attacks sort of being optimal.
yeah. Good
I mean,
old
you can definitely do other things with it, but it's kind of nice to sort of be like, this is what I should be running most of the time, and here's why.
right, and it's just like optimizing specific coverage, and I don't know if EV spreads kind of fall into that, but similar type of deal.
EVs are pretty simple.
Yeah,
I don't think those get optimized that often. They're pretty team dependent, I'd say.
yeah. Just what can I check with this mag without sacrificing too much is kind of my, because I came into Mons during like right as XY was ending and ORS was beginning. So right in like I think that's like October 2014, I think, somewhere in there. So
XY to ORAS, yeah, 2014 for sure.
so I'm kind of copying myself because I didn't join Pokemon Showdown until I was 13, and then I joined Smogon like 3 years later. So
Mm-hmm. Good cover, good cover.
that is good cover. You can check my join dates.
All right, man.
But that was like one of the things that I really like building with was mag, and I'm like, what can I do with this mag that can optimize myself and not shoot myself in the foot type of deal.
Yeah, it's always tough because like you wanted to sort of be like, oh, it's a catch-all check with AV, but like, oh, but it's a wall breaker if you can EQ a lantern.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many cool things with it.
So second question here from Eternally, also tied into ORAS. Do you think there's a difference between the ORAS generation of NU players and current gen players? So I'm assuming by current gen he means players that have played ORAS recently in team tours that weren't around during that time. And
Yeah,
what are those
definitely.
differences, and why do you think they exist?
I don't think there's a lot of differences necessarily. I think some of the older gen players are less likely to mess around with threats. Like they've been swept by Vivillon and Samurott too many times to like let it happen again, sort of deal. You know, they're shaking their fists whenever they see those Pokemon. Like not on my watch.
Yeah.
So like you can kind of get newer players with those a little bit more often. I say that I've been Viv'd recently. I've been Zangoose, or not Zangoose, but Linoon recently is too.
I forgot that mine's in
Um,
Noras. I always forget
and
about it.
that's another thing is like older gen players are more likely. Oh, hey, Linoon was really good at a certain point if you could pursue Trap the Ghost, or like, hey, Ponyard kind of has this dynamic where it's good on like two types of teams,
Yeah.
and Mawile can be good, but it's generally trash. Like they kind of know the keys to like breaking certain archetypes, and like current gen players are they're more likely to like use a good mix of Pokemon and like understand what six Mons are good. But I think a lot of the times their teams sort of lack this like cohesiveness
Yeah.
that like well tested teams can have.
And to kind of like, I don't know, not put it in my own perspective based on what you just said, but it's like when you're loading up a team that's like Fairy Dragon Steel and you forget one of the like core members of that. Like if I had a Steelix Mega Audino and I don't even know what fucking dragons are in there, to be honest, without looking at the builder. But
There's like none. It's goodbye at Altaria.
yeah, okay, never mind. But
It's like you're
like,
scraping the bottom of the barrel, dude.
missing one of those, I feel like is pretty not like common, but it's like definitely because I've been watching a lot of Oris and Sun Moon for
Mm-hmm.
his past like 5 team tournaments that I've managed in so far.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm always watching that. I'm always seeing new players just like completely bat an eye to some really like cohesive teams, and I'm like, this shit does not work.
Yeah, I mean, if you get caught in like a Volt turn loop, or you get something knocked and then you turn and you just like are falling right into the opponent's game plans, it can feel so oppressive.
Yeah.
Especially in SM, I feel like that tier is big on that.
Oh, that tier. If you get caught in a vortex within your first 4 turns, you're losing the game. Like,
Or if you like didn't read a situation right and get something toxic early, like you're just it's really tough to climb back. That's one thing I like about Orez is you can play from behind.
yeah, and even not to add insult to injury, but Splash with a 4 versus you for NUPL finals last summer. Not this past summer, but summer 2022. I remember.
Is that the one where I was allergic to leftovers?
That is the one where you got ice punched by a Hariyama because your Torterra was slow.
Yes, I had no leftovers on that team, and if Torterra was faster than Yama, we won. That was a cool game.
Yeah, not to add insult to injury, but that game Splash, like, you definitely kind of fucked Splash's shit up for a good like 99% of that game, and he was still able to claw back and win. Whereas if that was Sun Moon, you would have won in 15 turns.
Yeah, I mean, if you get a Pokemon lead in modern gens, it's very tough to come back.
That is very true. All right, I had to stretch real quick, but third question from Eternally. So 3 of 6 here. Okay, I gotta make sure I can actually read this because I'm not wearing my glasses, which means I'm blind as shit. What do you think the main... now, this might be a little bit out of your wheelhouse because I'm not sure how active you were, but what do you think the main reason for Sword Shield NU's poor reception amongst the community is? And would any bans solve the issue, or is it a fundamental issue with the gen itself?
That's a good question. I think SS is weird, like for NU specifically, because the power levels are so mismatched. There's like a clear like middling power level that's like manageable, and there's a few mons that are a little bit above that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty spot on way to put it, I feel like.
I think it goes deeper than that, though. Like, here's the thing: I didn't play a lot of SS tournament games mainly because I was put off by the tier.
Yeah.
I would ladder for suspect tests, but the meta was never really one to sustain my interest. But that being said, I was playing some test games with my SS player earlier today, and Engineer was invited to one of them, and we were like 9 turns in, and nothing had really taken damage. Like there were a couple of mons at 88%. Like he had missed one move, Rom did, but other than that, I thought it was a pretty standard sequence of events. And Chen's just like, wait, it's turn 9 and nothing's taken damage.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, yeah, that's part of the reason people hate this tier, dude. It's tough to make progress without like stepping out of line.
Yeah, the big thing with SS, to my like not my recollection, but because that was the first gen that I was truly involved in NU. Like I got Ladybug, and then I got CC. Sometime this gen, actually, I think I got CC, and then I got 4 mod a couple days ago. But like Gen 8 NU, like I'm looking at my builder, and it's just all skeletons from shit that got banned,
Mhm.
and I'm like, all of it is just like, I don't know. It's just like the fat fucks in the tier just make that tier very unenjoyable for me, to be honest.
For sure.
Like
Um,
Sylveon, Vaporeon, like fuck those mons. Like,
yeah, definitely. To kind of answer like the second part of Eternally's question, like would ban solve the issue? I think kind of to what you're saying, like there's a bunch of fat Pokemon in there.
yeah,
There was definitely like a balance first or defense first sort of philosophy this gen, where like it was clear the power level of certain mons was too high, and our gut instincts were to ban them. And I
yeah,
think we banned too aggressively. I think what we've sort of done with SV is kind of a model for what we want to do going forward. There's been some bad metas. I'm not going to say they've all been enjoyable, but for the most part, I've enjoyed having more tools to play with. And even if some of them feel oppressive, you kind of get to like think of interesting ways to deal with them for 1 or 2. So it's kind of fun in its own way.
yeah. And that's how like, because I was on when BDSP NU was the new wave, and by the new wave I mean we had like a single tournament with BDSP NU in it that I actually participated in. But like figuring out the tier, because originally I thought BDSP was shit, and it still kind of is, all things considered. It's like ORAS, but you got every move from every Pokemon, and then that's what you get. But like
Yeah.
figuring out that meta when we had like Aerodactyl in the tier, which was broken as shit, I was like, dude, this mon is impossible to beat, but I can innovate some shit. Like I started using like FizzDef, Strength Sap, Blossom, which was pretty standard, but
Yeah, it's definitely an adapt or die sort of thing. And I think this like more laissez-faire tiering policy sort of forces these players to do that hard work and build new teams if they don't want to get run over.
yeah. And I think monthly tier shifts also kind of play into that too. Because if you're getting,
Yeah, definitely. Like
because I think,
the sheer state of flux the tiers in all the time definitely doesn't help.
yeah, like if you're getting ran over for a month, there's a good chance you might be able to recoup for the next month, type of deal.
Mm,
And if
yeah,
you're like,
definitely.
figuring out the meta, then if you get the meta like quote unquote solved at that point, then it like completely shifts. Like we just had in January with DLC and the OU to NU drops and RU to NU and everything like that.
All right, you want to hear my SSNU hot take?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Banning Vaporeon would fix the tier.
Honestly, I don't disagree. I'm, I'm
I
gonna
think
be
that mon
honest.
is the central issue. It's the big progress suck for so much.
I think
Like if you can't do a KO Vaporeon, you don't get to be a physical attacker in that tier.
right, and I mean, I don't necessarily disagree, but I think like the big three of SSNU, that is like not even debatable. The big three is like Silvally, Ground, Rotom, Mow, and Vileplume. Like if we ban
But I
one,
love that sort of house of cards situation those
yeah,
three
I mean,
create.
I don't hate it to be fair, but it's just like that shit is just if you ban one of them, the other two are gonna go fucking rampant. Like you can't just ban all three.
They definitely set this weird equilibrium for sure.
Yeah, and like even in the SS suspect slot that we had in World Cup, I wasn't part of that tour because I think frankly World Cup is a shit format. I'm not a fan, but even
I
then,
was a big fan of that tournament. I think it's great. We should do it every year.
yeah, because you
Uh,
fucking won.
Go Team Australia. I mean, US West.
But I mean, even there, like we saw like Scrafty and Snorlax are broken as shit without the other three there to because you don't have Rotom Trick, you don't have Trapper Plume, and you don't have Savali Ground to muscle past it with Swords Dance. So
Well,
it's
this is the problem I have with people who like these defensive teams. It's like if all you have is fat mons, you have nothing to break through anything that can be fat and boot.
yeah. So like the Vile Plume and even
So
Savali
you need
Ground
that
is
immediate
like
power to be able
yeah.
to like.
So moving into question number 4. Now this is kind of like an introspective one. I gotta zoom in again because I'm blind. But what's changed about you as a player and builder over the years? Question mark. Do you think the dynamic nature of terrestrialization is part of why you've been able to enjoy and connect with SVNU more than some other recent gens?
Okay, so two-parter. I'm going to answer part two first, just because I think I've already hit on it a little bit. I think terrestrialization is part of it. It lends to like some creativity in the builder and flexibility in gameplay that feels very ORAS like. Like you can basically use anything as a check to something if you want to
Yeah.
through terrestrialization, which is cool. So I think that's probably why I connect and enjoy it more. As far as what's changed about me as a player and builder over the years, I think like in my younger days, I would definitely learn more just by grinding out, getting the volume, and learning from my mistakes, and sort of developing into a bunch of practice. Like sort of the way you learn calculus, you just do a bunch of problems, and then after a while, it starts to make sense.
Yeah.
I definitely did that with ladder back in the day. Like I was a very prolific ladderer and or as an SM. Um, and I think now I definitely try to be more thoughtful. Part of that's a necessity. I definitely don't have the time I used to, so I have to be a little bit more methodical and principled in my approach to both how I play the game, but also how I build.
Right.
And I think that's definitely what's changed about me. Is I try to think more long run, like what should I be doing here most often? Like when should I deviate from those sorts of plans? Like as far as plays go.
Right.
Like I had a situation earlier today where we were playing SM or something where I clicked a move and it was the wrong for the turn that happened. And I still say I'd click that 7 times out of 10 and feel good about it. And knowing that some of those 7, the turn is not going to go the right way.
Right.
And you kind of have to have that sort of long-term thinking to like understand like what player motivation should be like on a micro level for any given turn, but also just to like make sure that you're not exploitable as a player.
Yeah.
Like if people know that you always go to your ground type on Volt Switch, but you're just going to get Leaf Storm to Oblivion every time by a Rotom or something, you know?
Yeah.
So like you have to avoid being predictable by mixing your play. And I think being methodical about understanding to what level you mix plays based on how much value you gain, what sort of motivations there are. Like for example, there's a lot of situations where if you trade 3 Pokemon but you remove 1, you can secure a sweep for something else.
Right.
I'm struggling to think of an example. But I think that's a common experience to Pokemon players is we see like there is the hard stop to my win condition. If I remove it, I win. And like that dictates how that turn goes. Like that player knows I can't lose this or I lose to Comfy. So I have to switch.
Yeah.
Like and that's sort of where you have to learn how to dial up aggression and learn to almost anticipate so you can play proactively instead of reactively.
Yeah, and I mean, even drawing on a very recent example, like prior to going on to this interview, we just watched Elias versus ZS for what fucking tour is this? NUCL, something
Yes.
like that. And that was like the perfect example. Like I think ZS planned a lot more ahead in that game, and that's not just me hyping up my own player. Shouts to the Rag and Tag Rotoms, but I think he played a lot more proactively in that game, and he set up his win condition, which did end up being PP stalling. Spoilers if you haven't watched the game, but also having that floatzel there to, if he can break some specific fat shit that Elias brought, then the floatzel was opened up. So it's kind of like I don't know if you've seen the clip, but there's a clip of Moist Critical and XQC playing chess, and it was like I think it was like a chess charity tournament or something. Like they were donating the proceeds to something else. There's a bunch of content creators, and
yeah, PogChamps. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think I might know the clip too.
yeah.
Go ahead.
And so Charlie is like in there, and he's talking to his chat or whatever, or wherever he was live streaming. He's like, if XQC opens up with this, I will be fucking floored, or something along that effect. And then
yeah, he had like a planned 4-move opening like kill.
Yeah, and he won the game and he won the match in 6 turns. And then he went fucking bonkers. And I guess that's kind of similar to the proactive versus reactive playing.
Oh, definitely.
And granted, I don't think XQC is
that sort
really
of dynamic in Pokemon where you're like playing into your opponent's trap and don't even realize it.
Yeah, and not to dunk on XQC, but I don't think that guy's very intelligent. But
he is definitely not a deep thinker.
Yeah, he's definitely not a very.
I'm comfortable saying that. Come at me.
Yeah, I don't think he's a very methodical man.
I don't know, dude. Didn't he get challenged on like React videos and doing the worm instead of like engaging in a polite discussion?
I think so. That rings a bell.
Yeah, that definitely happened.
That I I have in my favorite gifs on Discord. I have him slamming and like breaking his desk or something like that. So
Oh yeah, dude, that gets posted all the time for sure. That's like right up there with Mods Crush's skull.
that gif, I swear to God, Rabia doesn't
It's classic
stop
though, dude.
spamming that gif. That's a that's a
I don't
classic.
know, dude. I'm not gonna get tired of it. I keep laughing.
I do
It's
keep
still
laughing every
funny.
time I see it. Every time I see it, it makes me laugh. So, question 5 here from a turn. It's kind of a two-parter, but it's a comment and a question. So the question is, would you consider making an SCL comeback in 2024? And he also says, I think you have all the tools to do really well this gen on a more competitive level, and would love to see you back in the ring.
Uh, this is a tough one for me because like I'd like to, but I know for a fact that it's just probably not going to happen for me. I'm not willing to put the work in. I don't have time to put the work in. I mean, I'm exhausted this week building 2 to 3 teams for SCL, dude, or NUCL. So like, I'm definitely not gonna. And like, I don't know, something affects me differently when I feel like other players, and I'm just in it to have a good time. And I feel like I do a disservice to my teammates. Like, because or as PL, I felt like dog shit that I just didn't want to play, and I kind of needed to.
Right.
So I don't want to be in that sort of a position where I'm forced to play for like other people, and I don't want to like not enjoy it. But also, just like again, I don't have time to put volume in. I don't think I can do the testing and keep up with the metagame enough to, be as effective in an environment. There's another team of, at least 2 to 3 other guys who are trying to do the exact same thing as good, if not better than.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of like me with this past World Cup. Frankly, I already said I think World Cup is a shit format for a tournament. I really hate it, and I wasn't gonna. I didn't want to. Firstly, I didn't want to manage because I wasn't gonna have the time, because that was
Mm-hmm.
right around. I think I was on vacation when the NUCL manager sign up went up, and then about a month later, I was back in school full time. So I was doing full time school, and it was like during the period of late August to mid December that I was on break for, or on like a Mons break, quote unquote. I was like
Sure.
not keeping up, and I'm like, if I was in a team tour saying, like, if I was a better player, which I'm not saying I'm a good player by any means, but if I was a better player and I was in a tournament, like, I'd feel pretty bad for my team because I would just be ghosting, like, not like not like the smoke on offense ghosting, but like I would just not be active. And that's how it was. I
Yeah,
was
I think
in,
I think it's very tough to manage your mental like all year round, and you kind of need to be a tour player.
yeah, and I was like, I was in Cat PL in like 20, I think it was summer 2022. And I was just really busy because I had an internship that went from 11 to 4, 3 days a week, and then 11 to 5 on the fourth day. So I was just always like
Mhm.
not able to be on my phone. And I felt bad because my manager tried to slot me in like multiple times. And I was like, yeah, like I'm busy as shit. Like I'm not gonna have time to prep.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. It's a time thing. I mean, I look back and I think about when I was actually good at tournaments, and it's like, oh, I was in high school in my first few years of community college. Like I had nothing but free time.
Yeah. All right. Sixth question here from a turn. We finally banged this one out. Who are your top 5 NU players of all time to watch and why? Not necessarily the best, but just people you enjoy watching or can draw inspiration from.
It's a great question. Let's see. First two to watch just because of the way they play the game and the way they prioritize and the principles they stick to. Probably a turn in FLCL. Just I think the two of them both have really good intuition and prioritize really really well with. Outside of that, like creative team wise, probably like this guy named Zben. I don't know if that's a common name to everybody these days, but he built some really wild looking Oraz teams back in the day that have modern day inspiration for me in previous tours.
Now, I don't mean to have you reiterate, but I'm going to have you reiterate that because I was being yelled at and I had to mute my mic and also take out my headphones. So if you want to just do
No
a
worries.
quick recap, I heard Zban and
But from the
FLCL.
top or just the last point?
From the top, I heard FLCL, also known as Watashi, and
Yeah, Fully and Etern,
yeah,
for sure.
okay,
Like those two, like have really good intuition and play really, really smart.
yeah,
Like they definitely prioritize well. They know what they're supposed to do, and They like make the right calls. Like I don't think I've ever seen FLCL a mid ground play incorrectly. The only time his mid grounds go wrong is when the opponent misses a situation and fucks up. Like I've had that happen where like I misread a situation with an Articuno, clicked roost, and it worked out.
Right.
So like that's the only time Fuli plays in the opponent doesn't understand the motivation policy. Other than that, like Z-Ben is this dude, built some really wild teams in Oraz that have kind of inspired some of my modern build. I'd say him. The great Teddy.
Oh,
I
good
don't
old
think
Teddy.
Teddy is someone who, when I really wanted to improve my Oraz plays, I would go back and watch and try to understand like how he would use his Zatu, how he would use his Tauros, how he would use his Liepard and Biopool. Because it's one thing to have the tools, but you have to know how to use them. And if you really want to learn Oraz, go back and watch Teddy Reap. The guy is notorious for only using like one branching out, which is great as like a learner
balance.
because you get to watch him pilot the same team and really kind of understand why it's so good and effective.
Yeah. The good old clef balance.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'm at 4 right now. The next one I'd say is probably Kushalos. And this is kind of interesting for me because I used to call him Chocolos because there was a period there where he would like click way too fast in endgame. And maybe I'm like stretching. Maybe it was like one game that I saw, maybe two. But I just thought he clicked too quick and like put himself in a loop. I called him Chocolos for a while. I called him the chef. And I don't know. We played a few games over the years recently. Like earlier in the gym, we played a practice game or two. Like pre-SCL, and he like hit me with this cool sand spit Sandaconda sand that I thought was wild. I'm like, oh, now I see why they call it. And he always brings something interesting to the table, whether it's his team choice or the decisions he makes in game. So those are definitely my top 5 people to watch play.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was just starting off when Teddy was like in his big heyday in Oras. I think.
Mhm.
So I'd be watching tours. I'm like, this guy is fucking insane. Like, I'd just be watching him.
Yeah, he just always seemed to know what to do. Like, always seemed to have. Like, I don't think the guy ever had a bad team matchup, which is wild for Oras and you to have that good of a read on your.
Yeah.
Or to like bring that consistent of teams that you don't have bad matchup.
Yeah. So moving into our last set of 4 questions from esteemed tier leader Rabia. Arabia. I've never known how to pronounce his name, but
Not my TL. I think it's Rabia. I'm not sure.
I don't fucking know.
I definitely call him Rabia sometimes though, because there was this old NU Odd Del Arabi, and we would like I just kind of called him the same because I didn't want to change.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
Yeah. So his first question: if you were to offer any advice to a person getting into competitive mons, higher level areas like tours, etc., what would it be?
Network, find friends. You have to these days. Even if it's just people you like will routinely play with. It used to be that you could ladder and get good at the game because there were a lot of high level players on ladder still. I don't want to say a lot, but like at any given time there might have been. That's not necessarily the case in NU all the time. Like there's still great players on the ladder, but to really sort of understand like even just best of 3 dynamics properly, I think private games are the best way to do that. You really want to get familiar with some people, and I say network because like building those relationships, team building with people, like trying to get in team tours and playing with them, that's really how you get into tournaments is through people. It's connections. Like if nobody knows who you are, it doesn't matter if you're the best player.
Right.
And through practicing and playing with others and team building with them, you learn how they think about the game, sort of take what you want from them, sort of adapt your schemas for it. It's a really like educational psychology perspective way of thinking about it. But like you update your mental models, like you get better at the game from that interaction. And I've always sort of thought this about Pokemon, like through collaboration, through sharing teams, through talking about the game, everybody benefits, everyone gets. And that's definitely something I would encourage people to do: is put yourself out there, challenge people, like especially if they seem receptive.
Yeah.
Like I always take challenges in the NU room. If somebody asks for a game and I'll usually be like, send it. So I mean, that's the best way to get yourself out there and get noticed.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I can harp to is having uh at least a network of people that you can talk to about the game and like build and everything like that. Like not to
Oh, they keep you grounded for sure.
yeah.
Like without Eternally, I wouldn't still be playing. Like he's just there when I'm online at 6 a.m. just having my coffee, crank out 10 games just because we're
Yeah, and I mean
like that's my dude.
I don't want to stir feathers here, but I was at least a member of a jerk for a good hot minute, and it was pretty helpful for me because like I'm not a great player, but I also don't care about being great. That's the thing. Like I don't,
Mm-hmm.
frankly, I don't really care about the tournament scene. That's just me. I just want to play for fun.
Yeah, have a good time, man. Pokemon's fun. Everybody
Exactly.
enjoys it. We're all here for the same reason.
And that was a jerk of a lot of tournament players and people with tournament success. So it was kind of interesting to see how they thought about the game and everything like that.
Yeah, it's almost like a you must win mentality, which can be really sort of debilitating
Mm-hmm.
in a game with so much variance.
Yeah, and that is why my tournament record in NU is a whopping 3-3.
Nice, dude.
Good old 3-3.
At least you're 500 without like you're not like one of those guys who says I'm undefeated 0-0.
Actually, let me think about it. I think 2-3. Actually, I lied. I'm just under 500. I've played a whopping
Yeah,
5 tournament games, but
that's still a respectable record, dude. That's like a decent
see,
season.
one of
And
them I won
yeah,
for about 90% of the game, and then I misplayed and lost the game because of it. Shoutouts to NU Snake 1. That was my debut, and that was the peak of my career. But anyway, so question 2. An observation of mine from Rabia, so observation of Rabia's lately has been players disregarding offensive counterplay to a Pokemon when discussing whether they're OP or not. Do you agree with this take, and why do you feel the way that you do?
100% agree with the take. I don't know that it's phrased the best way, but like the sentiment is true for sure. I kind of had like an informal rule when I ran the team building lab and or as an SM, and it was well, you need to have a type resist to every relevant attacking type, which in ORAS was every type. You need to have one resist to every type. If it wasn't a counter, like if it couldn't beat the top, like say it was Scyther flying, if it couldn't avoid a 2 KO from Scyther's flying type attack, it wasn't a counter, it was a check.
Yeah.
And the rule was you needed to have 2 checks or 1 counter for every type on your teams. And I think that's kind of a good fundamental philosophy to start off from. Like offense can get by with resistances. And it's really important to understand that offense, a lot of the time, abilities or just pure typing, like getting quad resistances, getting 2x resistances on mons that have decent bulk, like that's enough to stunt progress, force Pokemon out, and get momentum back. And that's really all you need for offense. And I think people sort of get stuck building teams and they're like, oh, I feel like I'm to this. And they don't really ever try it. And I think it's easy to sort of say things are overwhelming in the without ever really trying a more offensive team that might be able to have more proactive play.
Yeah.
And I generally just think people underuse Choice Scarf. They underuse Priority. As of right now, I think one thing we have access to that we haven't had in a while is like immediate power. We throw Choice Specs and Choice Pokemon and not just get installed. Like we can actually make progress with them. And I think that this is kind of a good meta for players to learn how to play off. There's a lot of cool tools.
Yeah. I mean, even a decent or not like a counterpoint, but a decent like harp on that is current NU Terrakion. A very controversial mon, I feel like. But
I think ZS kind of showcased what I'm talking about with his team today. It's like you don't necessarily need to like be able to switch into Stone Edge and CC like Palossand does. You need to be able to block progress with a Scarf Flygon so that you can switch into Stone Edge and force it out. You need to be able to like have something that quad resist just to deter, just to like make it so that like there are lines of C as a bad move click.
right.
Like just doing that is often enough to like give you chances and give you sort of lines where you like come even if you like don't have the most prepared team in the builder.
Right. I agree with that. I think like like Palosan good Pokemon right now, just because it does stonewall the two main moves that Tarak wants to use, was Stone Edge and CC. But it's like, if you can have something to like, not hard stop it like Palo, but like just something to deter the fighting and the rock moves, generally it's fine. Like, generally speaking, like you have the lines to be able to play against
Yeah,
a
like if
Terrakion.
you have like lines of the tree that they regret clicking a move, like generally speaking, you're like in a good position, or you're at least like in a neutral position, and it's not clear. Like there are definitely situations where like a Pokemon like Terrakion just has too much. It doesn't matter what they click,
Yeah,
but like that choice does matter when it comes to Terrakion. Like 129 attack is big, but again, like we have quad resist to CC, we have quad resist to Stone Edge. CC has an immunity. Um, there's just a lot of cool things that we have that allow dynamic play.
yeah, and just being able to. I think a big thing, kind of going back to like what the fuck was it? It's like figuring out the meta, like we were talking about with shifts and everything like that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
just being able to explore a little bit more in the builder, and find a Tarak on ladder, and then if I get smoked by it, then it's like, okay, I need XYZ on my team, and then I can
yeah. And I think you need to
counterplay
be able
like
to
that.
make calls like that. You need to be able to say like, hey, I think Gudra's ass in this meta. I'm not going to see it. I'm not going to worry about it as hard as I might. Like I think that's also a good skill for learning metas and something that defensive minded players can often miss. Like you can be a little if they're less common.
Yeah. So third question here. So we're almost to the end. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is there a sub meta of ORS that you remember fondly? So like sub meta, like in SS we had pre DLC meta, which was like Persian, Alola, Excelgor were pretty fucking
Mm-hmm.
popping. Do you have
Mm-hmm.
one for ORS that you remember fondly, and which one and why?
Yeah, 100%. The one that comes to mind is 2014 XYNU when it was Ferroseed, Dragalge, and Feraligatr Typhlosion sort of running the tier. It was this really cool sort of every team archetype sort of worked. We had people using Stall. We had people using lead Archeops, Hyper. Balance was kind of like king, but like offense was also good. And if you find ways to break balance, Stall, you could run offense. And there were a lot of Firewater Grass cores. Like we got to see Prinplup, like see its really high usage for the first time because it just like burned things, sat there and defogged. And a lot of the time it got Stealth Rock up after defogging.
Yeah,
And I think because Prinplup was so good, that's definitely my favorite meta.
I feel that was just before my time, but I remember seeing. I don't remember which PokeTuber it was that I used to watch a shitload of, but I remember he was making teams and then laddering with them in that meta. And I was like Gator and Dragalge, because Dragalge is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this Mon being NU, like now it makes sense. But back then I was like, this Mon is fucking crazy. Like 13-year-old me was going insane. And I was like, dude, why are people sleeping on this guy? And then I was like watching him fuck the club up with Dragalge, and I think it was like Dragalge Gator, I think was his main core. And then he was just going to town. And I'm like, then he got stonewalled by a Prinplup in one game, and it was fucking hilarious. I can't remember who it. I don't even know if he's on YouTube anymore. I don't even know, but that was really funny to
I'm
watch.
curious as to like if I know the name. Like we can chat afterwards if you remember. But yeah, I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, I'm
I
just
do have
like
another meta I want to talk.
yeah, you're good.
It was like in I want to say it was 2016. Like it was an Oras was still current gen, but like SM was out, and there was this weird dynamic back in the day where the current gen OU would be mismatched with like past gens like NU, RU, you
Yeah,
got up tier shifts. So we got to play a lot more Oras after the tier was officially over for OU, basically. And there was this time well before that. I don't know why I'm this up at all. This was in 2016. Before that, I had the Shedinja team when Baton Pass was still legal, and if I could play that meta again, I'd love that. I had this RMT that I ended up getting like one on ladder with, and it was a record at the time. I don't know if it still stands. It was like the largest gap between one and two. There was like a 230 or 250 point gap I was at like 1760. The next guy was at like 1510 or something.
Jesus.
And I just didn't lose with the team unless I got hacked. And it was this weird meta where walled everything. Like Kling Klang and For Alligator couldn't touch you. So like you just have these hard stops to the tier's biggest threats, and you BP out to see Sock and destroy them. It's my favorite team. I won so many Zatu mines, and that team taught me so much about how to like take advantage of mistakes and also to like find holes in game plans where you can punch through. It also taught me that you should always close combat with your fighting types. Never click coverage. Always CC all 8 times until you're out of PP. Then you the other.
Is that the Shedinja team with the fucking Staryu on it?
No.
Oh, that's
That came after.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
after BP was banned, and I was like trying to relive that team's trash.
Yeah, see, I remember you loading that in Snake 2, and I got very pissed off about it, despite us being locked for playoffs. I remember getting
No,
very
and
annoyed
honestly,
about it.
that team has chances. It has play. It wasn't like a deadlock position when we queued into it.
Yeah, that is a very fair point. I remember getting really mad about that for no reason. I was like, we're locked for playoffs. Like, we're already going to
I
be
think
in
I
the
was spike
playoffs.
because you were trying to like cheese activity wins.
Oh,
And, like,
yeah, you're right. I was trying to cheese an act win. That's right.
so I was just like, I hate this guy right now, dude. I'm just gonna show him what I think of him.
I remember that. That was a good time. That was the greatest roster that never won. That roster went crazy.
For sure.
I still remember
Yeah,
that to this day.
we had such a great old gems core.
We
Oh
did.
my goodness.
Okay, we don't talk about RBY. And our Sun Moon was,
not a tier.
Our Sun Moon was kind of whatever. But the rest of it was crazy. And our SS was fucking wild too. Like I remember.
That was a fun team regardless, dude.
That was a fun team. I miss those days. All right, our fourth and final question for the interview. This kind of ties into the second question Robbie asked, and you probably already hit on it. But what team building fundamental do you think people should hammer into their head the most if they want to generally improve at the facet of comp mons?
So like this is a tough one for me because it kind of changes depending on what level of like development as a player you're at. If you're a beginner, I think that rule of like trying to like have a counter for every type or a check at the very like 2 checks, is kind of a good rule of thumb. It's probably harder to do in modern. Like I definitely like build a lot of teams up these days.
Yeah.
But that kind of leads me to my next point. As you get better, you have to start thinking more like in context. Like it can't just be like, oh, my fighting type needs to be able to get past flying types and poison types. Because that sort of thinking like really falls short when everything is dual typed in these metas. Like it doesn't matter if like flying types are weak to rock if Gligar isn't weak to rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can't stone edge a Gligar to death as easily. So the context starts to matter a little bit more. And then you really need to start thinking about setup mons a little bit more, the better you get and how susceptible. And sort of learning how to not only build teams, but play in such a way that you don't allow yourself to get set up on.
Yeah.
Is kind of there's a weird dynamic there between team choice, team structure, and how you're playing the game. And you kind of have to decide who you're going to be as a player.
Right.
And that kind of happens at that intermediate level. So it's tough, but I would just say like try to fit checks to everything. And then again, think in context, like think in terms of a threat list. Like, what are you actually scared of losing to? What are people using to win games? Like that's kind of what you need to direct your focus towards.
Right. And just being able to, if I can't check XYZ threat, then I need to improve my team. And then from there, I can kind of learn a little bit more once my team isn't so like fundamentally flawed.
Right. I think this kind of goes a little deeper and more to the idea of just like synergy in general. Like your Pokemon need to work well together. Like defensive synergies and offensive synergies. If you have a bunch of if you have 3 weaknesses to like ground, for example,
yeah,
like not only do you want either a flying type or a type most likely, but you probably want a water type to threaten grounds. Like you need to think of like that sort of offensive synergy. It's like my Pokemon are weak to this like type defensively, so I want to be able to hit that type offensively very hard. And I think that's sort of a spot players miss. So that's kind of a good one.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip for really. I mean, that can kind of go with every level of player, like even the super high levels of players. that we see in these NU tournaments, like and tournaments across the site. It's just like something you can't really forget.
Hmm.
It is
For
something
sure.
that's very important. So
Yeah, it's definitely half of the game that
yeah.
is it's tougher to see at first, for sure.
So with that, that does wrap up the Kid KIYO expose, I guess. And so usually how I'd end these off is if you want to suggest a couple people that you think I should interview, granted, I'm not going to interview Teddy because I don't even know if he's on Smogon anymore. Like, but if you want to suggest anyone that I should interview for the next one, it'll probably go up like sometime next week, I would think, assuming I don't get
Hmm.
fucking slammed because my next class starts on Monday. And it's,
Hmm.
according to everyone that I've talked to in my degree, it's the worst class in the program. Like,
I'm curious. What's the class?
it is malware analysis and reverse engineering.
Oh my goodness, these IT majors, bro.
Hey man, cybersecurity.
Okay, cyber.
It's a little bit different. But yeah, if you want to suggest anyone for the next interview, I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we can talk about this. Yeah, for sure. DS, just because he's like been the other council member who's voted no ban a lot, and I'm kind of curious to like see what he thinks. He's somebody who will like talk a little bit in chat, but doesn't like 100% share his opinion every time. I think it would be interesting to hear from probably Danny. Um, like I have a bit of a morbid curiosity there because they've been, involved with, the gen for the better part of the last two generations,
yeah,
and they've seen a lot of people come and go. They've sort of like gotten to experience leadership from different people, and they're definitely a newer. So I would be interested just from hearing from them because, well, they're somebody I don't like chat with deeply as much as some of the old heads.
right.
So yeah, those two, ZS and Danny.
All right. Now I can't guarantee anything, but one of those two might be slated for the next interview, possibly.
Okay. All right,
But
that'd be cool, dude.
that'll wrap everything up for Player of the Week interview number 6 with an asterisk because it's technically my 5th one that I've done, but it's 6 total
Gotcha.
because originally GW ran the project and he interviewed Poe to start, and then the project went dormant for about 4 months, and I was like begging the shit, or not begging the shit, I was bugging the shit out of Zia, or not Zia, GW. Jesus, I cannot speak. I was bugging the shit out of GW to let me run the project because I had a fuckload of free time because I was still in community college. So I was like,
Hmm.
and all of my classes were 7 weeks. So I'd go like 7 weeks for 2 classes. I'd have a week break and then another 7 weeks after that. So I had a good amount of free time in there. I'm like, GW, bro, you gotta let me run this project. And he finally gave it up.
For sure.
It took like a couple weeks, but he finally did it.
Dude, I feel that on a spiritual level. I like have distinct memories of sitting in like a common area, like doing QC checks on Pokemon and shit.
Like mine was because I was a COVID graduate, so I graduated high school in 2020. So
Mhm.
everything was online. Like even when they opened up the option to take in person, I don't think any of my classes were offered in person except for my gen eds. But I was like, no one's taking these in person
Sure.
with the pandemic going on. So it was just like online. I'd do schoolwork for like 90% of the day, and then the last 10% of the day I'd be up until like 5 in the morning playing games. So I'm like,
Right, right.
the good old schedule. But thank you to Mr. KIYO for coming on to the interview. And
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Awen. I hope the project continues to do well.
it's a good note to end it on. I am also hoping it goes well. All right, peace.
Yeah, see you, man.